All right, welcome everyone to the April Argo CD and Argo Rollouts community meeting. My name is Jesse Suin, and I am a maintainer of the Argo projects. And today we have a couple announcements. The first announcements we have is the general availability of Argo CD 2.0. So this is actually, and let me start sharing. So we actually had the release candidate for just under a month, and this has actually been one of our smoothest releases so far. Internally at Intuit, we've been running this in our production systems for the since about March 19th, and so far it's been one of the smoothest releases we've had so far. So if you haven't yet tried it out, there's a lot of new interesting features. Probably the biggest one that we have is this new UI for showing your pods in a different way. And so if you have a large application which has many pods, there's a new button right here which visualizes your pods in and groups them at either a node level or a top level resource level, or also a parent level, which is useful if you want to see pods jumping from one replica set to another. And the other thing we have is there's a lot of stuff in the ecosystem. So within the Argo Project Labs, we have the image updater. So if you want Docker push to actually trigger builds, you can actually install. Actually, let me open the link to the CNCF. So we have an image updater which lets you trigger Argo syncs via pushes to Docker Hub. We have Argo CD notifications, which is if you want things like Slack notifications when your application promotes or degrades, and application sets. If you this is now our first official release for application sets, and this is our controller which helps you manage groups of applications as a unit. So if you have if you find yourself needing to duplicate your applications with minor variants of the same spec, then application sets lets you automate the creation of those applications. So yeah, so Argo CD 2.0 is out, and I encourage everyone to start trying it if you haven't already. And so the next two items. So today, Shama will be presenting on a enhancement proposal to essentially revamp our configuration management plugin. And so currently the problem with config management plugins is that it's pretty cumbersome to get. Basically, if you want to customize your config management, it's pretty cumbersome. You have to rebuild the Argo CD image or map in some binaries at runtime and edit some config map to specify how to use it. So the config management 2.0 is trying to address all those limitations. And finally, Remington will be showing UI that the kubectl Argo Rollouts plugin will have that you can run locally, or actually you can run it inside the cluster if you want, but a UI that you can run locally to visualize your rollouts as they are deploying. Okay, with that, I'll pass it off to Shama. And just a reminder, these meetings are recorded and uploaded to YouTube. So do we have Shama here?
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. I'll start sharing the screen. Okay, so hello everyone. Today I'll be talking about the config management plugin enhancement. So to begin with the summary, currently Argo CD provides the first class support for Helm, customized KSONet and JSONet. The support being bundled binaries and ability to override parameters in UI, via UI and CLI, the application discovery in Git repository and auto suggestions while creating the application in UI, and the performance optimization. So we want to enhance the config management plugin so that it can provide the similar first class support for additional tools such as CDKs, Tanka, JK config, etc. So goal of this proposal is to improve the installation experience. So currently, config management plugin installation requires two changes by Argo CD operator. First is to add an entry in config management plugin in Argo CD config map. And second is to add an init container, either to add an init container via volume mount that adds a new binary in repo server pod, or to rebuild the repo server image, which contains the necessary tooling required. This problem being error prone and manual, the goal here is to make the additional tools easily accessible for the installation. And the second is to second Second is to provide discovery, that is auto selection of the tool. So for natively supported config management plugins, currently Argo CD auto detects and selects the appropriate tool given only the Git repository. This selection is based on the recognition of the well-known file in the directory, that is chart.yaml or customization.yaml. So unlike for natively supported tools, when a plugin is used, a user is supposed to specify the plugin name, which will be used to render the manifest. So as part of the improvements here, we want to provide the same ability to auto-select the plugin based on the recognized files in the path of the Git repository. Jumping to the proposal, so the solution that we have drafted for this problem statement is to run the config management plugin tools as a sidecar in the repo server. So it means that config management plugin 2.0 will be a user supplied container image with all the necessary toolings installed in it, and it will run as a sidecar in the repo server deployment and will have access to the shared Git repositories. It will also contain a specification file describing how to render the manifest, and its entry point will be a lightweight config management plugin API server that will receive the request from the main repo server on how to render the manifest based on the specification file. So the benefits it provide over the existing solution is that now plugin owner will have control over the execution environment, so they can package whatever dependent binary is required. And an Argo CD operator who wants to use the additional config management tool will not have to go through the hassle of building the customized repo server in order to install the required binaries. And then this plugin image will be running in a container separate from the main repo server. So coming to the use case, the first use case being as an Argo CD user, I would like to use the first class support provided for the additional tools to generate and manage deployable Kubernetes manifest. And as an Argo CD operator, I want to have the smooth experience to install the additional tools. And as a plugin owner, I do want to have some control over my execution environment so that I can install the dependent binaries. Um, Now for the implementation detail. So for installation, a plugin, an operator will simply have to patch the repo server to run the config management plugin container as a sidecar. So for example, if I want to use the CDKs plugin, then I would run it as a sidecar container in the repo server deployment, and its entry point will be the CMP server, which will be in the volume shared between the repo server and the plugin sidecar container. And this will also change the repo server manifest. So now the repo server manifest will have an init container which will pre-populate a volume shared between the plugin and the repo server. So this init container will copy the CMP server from the volume shared between the repo server and the plugin container. And the shared volume will hold the socket file that repo server uses to communicate to each plugin and the Git repositories cloned by the repo server. Now for configuration, the plugin will be configured via manifest file located inside the plugin container, placed at the well-known location. So how this file gets here, Argo CD doesn't care how this file is placed inside the plugin container. The options being baking the file into the plugin image as part of the Docker build, or volume mapping the file through a config map. So this is the example of this specification YAML. So one thing to note here is that even though it looks like Kubernetes object, it is not a custom resource. It only follows the Kubernetes style spec convention. So here it will have an init command, generate command, discovery command, and allow concurrency. So allow concurrency is something which we have currently. It enables the multiple manifest creation in parallel. The generate command is the command which will be used to render the manifest, and the discovery command is the command which will so when the repo server will auto select a tool, it will run this discovery command in all the listed tools, and whichever command responds with a positive response will be chosen. So let's say if it's a CDK's plugin, then if this command is ran, it will have a main.ts file and it will respond with a positive response, and then CDKs will be chosen as the plugin to render the manifest. So now what is a CMP server? CMP server will be a new Argo CD component whose responsibility will be to execute the generate command inside the plugin environment. So it will expose these two APIs. So first is generate manifest, and second is supported. So it's supported returns whether or not the given path is supported by the plugin, and the path here being the path to the application. At the startup, CMP server will look for the specification file to understand how to perform these requests. So for the registration, the repo server now needs to understand what all plugins are available to render the manifest. So to do this, CMP servers will register themselves as available plugin to Argo CD repo server by populating the name socket file in the shared volume. So the name of the socket file here will indicate the plugin name. And to discover the available plugin, the repo server will simply list the shared plugin directory. To communicate with the plugin, the repo server will need to connect to the socket and make gRPC call against the CMP server listening on the other side. Okay, so for the auto selection of the tool, the plugin discovery will run in the main repo server container, and the Argo CD repo server then will list this plugin directory, and run the discover command from the specification file in each one of them, and whichever responds with the positive response first will be selected. So for the versioning, if there will be one sidecar container per version. So if someone wants to use two different versions of a plugin, then they would have to configure two different sidecars. Coming to the security consideration here. So first of all, to use a plugin as a sidecar container separate from the main repo server is already an improvement over the existing mechanism, because the plugin tooling will no longer have the access to the files of the Argo CD repo server image. So however, we can implement additional improvements to improve the security. So one issue that we realize currently is that when repositories are cloned, they are cloned with the UID of the Argo of the repo server user. So all the repositories that are cloned will have the same UID. So this means that a command which executes in the Git repository path could traverse upward and see and write the file which are outside the current tree. So one proposal to prevent this thing is that each Git repository can be cloned with a unique UID different from the repo server UID. So when the CMP server executes the tooling command to generate the manifest, the command could be executed with the UID of the Git repositories file instead of the repo server UID. So this would ensure that the command could not read or write outside the current repository directory. Lastly, for the upgrade and downgrade strategy, one thing to note here is that this proposal will not change how we are handling the native plugins currently, but for the additional tools, Argo CD repo server manifest will change because now it will contain an init container which will populate CMP server binary inside the plugin. So this init container and the additional volume will be present in the Argo CD repo server manifest. And after upgrading to this version, Argo CD operator will now have to make the following changes if they want to use the additional tool. So first of all, they will have to install the plugin as the sidecar container. So they will have to patch this into the repo server manifest. And this sidecar container's entry point should be the CMP server. And secondly, they'll have to place the manifest file inside the plugin container. It can be done, as mentioned before, it can be done either via baking the file into the plugin image or via volume mapping file through the config map. So that's it. If anyone has any questions. This is available as a PR in the Argo CD repo. So if anyone is interested, they can go and look at it as well. I can share the PR.
So, quick question. So could I use this to override one of the built-in tools? Like, could I use it to specify say a custom version of Helm?
So that's the goal. So theoretically, it should be able to do that.
Yeah, one of the I think the choices we have to make is that should the native currently native support like the customized Helm, should they be also built-in plugins? I mean, do we ship the manifest with like a Helm and a customize and I guess JSON it sidecars, and then that way people can choose to use upgrade Helm at their leisure. I think that should be a target state that we can swap out the native stuff with config management 2.0. But it is, I think, a little tricky because the spec, the Argo, the application spec, as you know, already has first-class fields support for those built-in kinds, and so we'll have to need some kind of special casing to support it both as a config management plugin, but use the native syntax in the application spec. So, but I think that should be a goal of ours, is to be able to replace the natively supported stuff with images.
I wanted to highlight one more goal. So currently, every plugin have to be kind of configured by the end user in each and every Argo CD instance, and that's pain. I mean, documentation reduces that pain, but it's still not easy. So with that proposal, basically the whole plugin configuration can be packaged into YAML file, and it can be crowdsourced. Like basically, we could potentially have a GitHub repository that has catalog of plugins, and plugin maintainers can, can improve configuration, which then can be used by everyone. And I think it's maybe one of the most important improvements.
Right. Yeah. The idea is like we should start having people publish like, oh, I have a new a plugin for CDKs, and there's like a whole community that maintains like the CDKs plugin, and CDKs never has to be natively supported by Argo CD. It's just you can choose the version of CDKs you want by just adding a sidecar. Similarly, maybe you don't need it. You can use off-the-shelf Docker images that just have the tooling already. And the only thing you need to do is take that off-the-shelf container image and just map in a specification into that sidecar that tells Argo CD how to invoke the command. So those are two goals to kind of just simplify the whole experience of using custom tooling.
Right. And I guess you said the way you actually install the plugin is to patch the repo server, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess you got to do that for every instance of Argo CD, and anytime you upgrade, you'd have to remember to repatch it again, right?
That's true. I guess that yeah. So it depends. I guess it depends on how you're managing your Argo CD. I guess for customized users, it would be pretty simple because they just do a last mile overlay with their sidecar, and so even if they upgrade the main Argo CD, they don't really have to repeat any sidecar installation process because their overlay is already there. I guess I'm not sure what the experience would be for Helm, but I imagine the Helm chart would have a plugin. We need to evolve to have like a plugin section, and I would believe that those would get preserved from update to update once they start using plugins.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions for Shama about this feature?
Mhm.
Yeah. So once again, this is an enhancement proposal. By the way, we're trying to follow this new process for bigger changes to Argo CD. So there's for any kind of non-trivial type of enhancement that we want to make to CD, there's a template about. Let me see if I can find it while I'm talking.
Yeah, that's in master. We should be able to drop a link.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at.
But there's a enhancement proposal template for these bigger changes that have different sections that you need to fill out. Security considerations, whether the upgrade and downgrade strategies. So if you have a biggish idea that you want in Argo CD, I think you'll want to follow this proposal, or we'll ask you to follow this proposal process to describe how you use cases and how it would work. And I'll find a link.
Should be in docs proposals. Sorry, I'm just on a different device. That's why I can share it.
Thanks, Shobik. All right, so Shobik will link to that in the chat. And next we have a new web user interface for the Argo Rollouts plugin. So Remington has been working on that. This is something we actually thought we could squeeze into the upcoming Rollouts V1 release. And Remington, do you want to start sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. Let's see. Let me see if I can get my desktop shared. All right. All right. Can you guys see my desktop?
Yeah, we can see your entire screen.
Okay, can you see the terminal window?
Yeah.
Great. All right. Perfect. So we've baked this into the kubectl Argo Rollouts plugin. So all you have to do to start this is run kubectl Argo Rollouts dashboard. And now it's going to be hosting at localhost 3100. So I'll do a new window here. And you can see we have a list here of all of the rollouts that are currently available in this namespace. So it's on a per namespace basis. So I've just got this demo namespace here, rollouts demo. You can search for any rollout. There's only 3 here, but if you have a long list of them, it might be a little bit more useful. And then you can click on any of these. So in this overview, you can only really see the pods that are in each replica set. There's not a whole lot of other information here. So let's dive in. So we have this Canary rollout here, and it's currently paused. So we have 2 replica sets. We have the Canary replica set and the stable one. One's running the yellow image, one's running the blue image. So we can actually change the container image through this UI. So I'm going to change it to the red image actually. And we'll save it. It's going to ask if we're sure. So we'll save it. You can see this updating live. So this new container is being created. It's basically just updating the Canary replica set to this new red image. So this pod looks good to go. You can see we're still paused here, but this red image actually has some errors in it. It's designed to be an error-full container image. So instead of promoting it full, I'm going to abort it. So it'll again confirm that I want to abort. So now that we're confirming that we're aborting, you can see that this is starting to terminate, and this replica set now has an extra pod in it. So let's go ahead and we'll actually promote it full this time. So let's go back to the blue image. And you can see it's suggesting here some container images. So these are all the images that have previously been used in this rollout. So let's go back to blue. All right. Okay, so this container is creating. All right, so now that this is created, we can see it's paused here. So I'm going to go ahead and promote it full. So now this replica set will start to terminate one by one, and then some new pods will be spun up here. And you can see that it's progressing through these steps right here. So you see each step that was defined in the rollout spec, it's waiting 10 seconds every 20% wait. And so it's just slowly going through these steps, and you can see them update live here. You can also see right here the current set wait and actual wait, and then the current step. All right, we'll wait for this to complete. One more. And there it goes. All right, so now that these are all up and running, I'm going to show the rollback feature here. So you can roll back to any of these replica sets. So any previous state of the rollback, or of the rollout, you can roll back, and you can see that it's now slowly starting to terminate the blue replica set. Oh, actually, no, sorry. It's going to go back to the previous Canary state. So this red image will be the Canary image, and this blue replica set will remain. You can also restart from here. So all of the pods will restart if you click this. Eventually, yep, starting to restart. And additionally, you can go back to the list, and we also show analysis run information. So that rollout that I was just demoing didn't have any analysis runs in it, but this one does have a simple job analysis run. This one's still running. I think there was something wrong with it, but once it's completed, if it's successful, then this little bar will show green, and if it's errored, that'll show red. And so we keep, I believe, only 10 of these analysis runs, and so typically you'll have somewhere on the order of 10 little bars across here that will show your current analysis run state. Anybody have any questions?
Does it work for blue-green as well?
Sorry, what was that?
Does it work for blue-green as well?
Yes, it does. Yeah. So we can go to blue-green. There's just a lot less information here that's surfaced for blue-green, but it does work for blue-green. Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts, opinions?
Yeah, so for some context, actually, when we started trying to build out the UI, this is actually something we wanted to do in the Argo CD user interface first, and that was actually where Remington started his work. Is like, how do we get Argo CD to show rollouts in its UI in a better way, rather than just the resource tree view. But then as we started thinking about it, there was actually more of a issue in general. Like, how do we show more richer information for things, not just rollouts, but other type of custom resources that might come up in the future. And so what happened was we shifted our thought process and saying, okay, instead of Argo CD building native support for visualizing all these custom resources, what if we delegate this out to some other extension? Meaning, if we could have almost like an iframe or something. And so we haven't fully thought that out yet, but we knew that I think a future direction of Argo CD is that we want to allow the UI to get extended somehow in Argo CD. And so instead of building it directly in Argo CD, we decided to make a standalone Argo Rollouts UI that could eventually somehow get integrated into Argo CD, which we're still working through that. So in the meantime, the Rollouts benefits by having a standalone interface, but the goal, ultimate goal, is that this UI that you see right here should make its way eventually to Argo CD somehow in an extensible way, and that's some future enhancement that we want to do in the Argo CD feature. All right.
Anybody have any more questions? All right, I'm going to stop my share. Thank you.
Thank you, Remington. Okay, so we actually came to the end of our topics. Did anyone have any additional after topics they wanted to bring up to the team while we're still here? You know, questions on issues or you know, future work items or 2.0 or anything. All right. So I think that concludes the April community meeting for Argo CD and Rollouts. And thanks everyone for attending. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks for the Rollouts and Events community meeting. As always, if you do have a topic that you want to bring up, you can always put it in the Google Doc that we have for these meetings, and just add it to the agenda item, and then we'll make sure we address, you know, start thinking about it before we come to the next meeting. All right. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Jesse.
And we'll see you again later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.